of what I feel in my pocketbook at the end of the year in less tax. Is that a benefit? We could put a number to that. Now, that's going to be a bigger number for most of your clients because they're in the 40% tax bracket, but we use a conservative 24%, right? So now we have cash flow that's nominal. We have equity that built. How was this equity built? This $2,000, I got in equity because 12 of those payments that I wrote to the bank, there was 2,000 of those, of the total of all those payments went to reducing the principal on my loan. So I built equity, and that's how people get rich with rentals, by the way. It's not from the cash flow, it's from how many tenants do you have paying boxes off for you, right? And then the first year of your amortization schedule, that's the least amount of those payments that goes to principal. So that's the smallest number you'll see. Imagine what that number looks like 15 years into your 30-year loan. That's huge, right? So just first year, they got $2,000 of equity just from principal reduction, and then they have $8,400 in appreciation. How do we get that $8,400? I assume a 3% appreciation rate here to be very conservative, but who gives us that number? If the client doesn't believe any part of this story, then it kills the credibility of the whole presentation, right? So I'm never going to put a number in their head or on a presentation unless it came from them. So I'm going to get that number from my client. And here's how that sounds. Obviously, we know real estate prices go up over time. You'd agree with that. Of course, everybody agrees with that, right? Over time. We're going to try to quantify what the appreciation is going to look like on this house, say in just the next 10 years. You know, some years we'll see prices go up, some years they go down, some years they go up a whole lot like they did the last 2 years. But I want to be very conservative to make these numbers real. What would you say is an average appreciation rate we can use for the next 10 years, an average? What are they going to tell us today? What do you think they'll say? If they have recency bias, they'll consider the last couple years, which was stupid, right? Like double digits, 15, 17%. Most of them will say, what, 6 to 8%, some will say 3 to 5%, and then we always come back, let's build some credibility here. We'll say, how about this? Let's use a very conservative US historic average of 3 to 4%. We'll stay on the low side just to be very conservative. So you just put 3% in there. What'd you just do to your credibility, right? You're not a salesperson anymore. So now we just take, we have on very conservative basis, $8,400 of appreciation. And if we add all 4 of these benefits up now, the total benefit of owning this rental property is $17,600 against how much out of pocket? I'm only $150 out of pocket. So that $17,000 is just under 12% return on my money net after tax. How does that compare to a stock net after tax now? What was the number we're comparing it to? 7, right? So I'm outperforming on a property that barely cash flows. It carries itself, but I get my tax write-offs, tenants paying off the principal for me over time, and I get to ride Florida appreciation. And so net on my $150,000, where am I going to get an after-tax benefit on my $150,000 that's going to be in the double digits today? Does that make sense? You guys getting that? We can look every investor in the eyeballs and tell them 100% I will match or do better than paper investments long term. No questions asked. Even at today's 7.5% rate, even at today's prices, even at today's rents. Now you may have to put more than 20% down, and how do we know how much down you got to put down for it to cash flow? If it doesn't cash flow on a 20% down payment over here, I just got to keep increasing this down payment number until I see a positive over there, right? And that's how much down you have to do. This is powerful. You talk to a client who's getting ready to buy a property, and you're in the qualifying phase. You'll make more money just saying no to people using a tool like this than you will actually using it to get somebody at the closing table. It's going to save you so much time and brain damage with people that aren't qualified, right? Can you guys do this exercise if I gave you the tool?
Yes.
Would you do it?
Yeah.
You guys say that, and then I leave, and then I see 2 people download the file. All right, so let's do this. Here's where you can get the tool. Whoop. So if you go to this website right here, there's a cash flow class. You just scroll down the screen. Actually, I don't know if this QR code is working. Take this. Okay, take this URL down, guys. Go to Cashflow PM. So PM is short for property management. Cashflowpm.com/. partner. cashflowpm.com/partner. And that will take you to our agent support page for our property management company. And if you need to submit a referral for property management, you can do it there. If you need to get cash flow numbers because you're working with a client, you want to get them to the closing table, you can request a cash flow summary, so we'll do the work for you. But if you want to do it yourself and do your own presentation, you can download the tool and go through the 5-part cash flow class. It's free, right? And then do the hard repetitions. How am I doing on time, guys?
You're good, you got 14 minutes.
Okay, so pilot fish investing, to wrap this up. Now that we know how to talk the numbers, how do we find the deals? Here's the hack. So a pilot fish, if you guys didn't know, is this little black and white fish that swims underneath sharks. So they let the shark do all the hard work, and then what do? They pick up all the little bits and pieces from the main meal, right? So in a way, we can do pilot fish investing by hacking the MLS. You know who has the best data out there on where the returns are? Is private equity funds and these institutions, family offices that are buying 40% of all our residential cash transactions right now. There's 5 companies buying about 40% of all of our residential cash transactions. You want to know where they're buying? Because you know what they have? They have rooms of MBAs who are crunching numbers on data that we can't even afford to buy because it's such priceless data. And they're finding where these pockets are, and that's what's leading their acquisition process, right? So we can go on the MLS and pilot fish to see where they're buying by doing a very simple search. Take you 2 minutes to do this. Go on the MLS, do a search of properties that sold cash in the last 365 days, under $400,000. Now you have to add the custom field of terms because the type of financing the buyer used isn't on there, right? So you got to add that to your search criteria. And if you do that search and then you go to the map of all the red icons, you'll see they'll be loosely clustered in different pockets of Orlando or Central Florida. And those pockets where they're clustered is going to point to where the institutional investors are buying properties right now and paying cash for them, right? Because they know where those returns are. Now you have a starting point to work with your clients. You guys with me? Any questions on that before I move on? So that gives us kind of a starting point, and hacks saves you a ton of time. So if you're going to do your exercise later, do that search first, find out where those clusters are. And by the way, cash transactions under $400,000, they're not all obviously investors that are buying rental properties. Some of them are just somebody who sold their house in New York, bought a $400,000 house down here cash, and they're sitting on the rest of it as their nest egg for retirement, right? But most of those are going to be investors. So now that we know how to talk the language, we sound like a superstar on the phone. By the way, the presentation of your deal is more important than the deal. Because if you can imagine trying to talk about a home run deal, oh my God, this thing you can buy for this little amount of money and it rents for this, that's not going to get you to the closing table, where you can take an average deal like we just talked about that barely cash flows with the 30% down payment, and you can get that to the closing table because you build a level of certainty because you demystified the numbers for them, right? And you put it in black and white on paper. The presentation is more important than the house, if you guys follow, right? So now how do we surface investors on our social media? It's as simple as this. You guys know what print screen is? Or you can snag it, or if you have Windows, you can use a snipping tool, right? Just do the cash flow summary on a property. Take the house, the picture of the house, take a picture of your numbers, and throw it on your timeline. And here's what you caption it. Every single time it's the same caption. If you are looking for an inflation hedge, comma, tax write-offs, comma, and you want to build wealth passively in real estate, passive is the key word there, contact me. Inflation hedge, tax write-offs, and build wealth, passive wealth in real estate, right? And any variation of those kinds of words. The point is, you're selling money, you're not selling houses, right? That's the key distinction. And you're showing something that's different than they're seeing from other agents. And every week before your day gets started, just pick one day of the week before your day gets on top of you and you lose control of your day. Just do that in the morning before you leave the house or whatever, and just post that deal of the week. It takes you 2 minutes, literally 2 minutes to do. And it doesn't even have to be a house, because here's the thing, you're not trying to sell the house on the post. What are you trying to do?
Get people.
You're just trying to demonstrate that you're different, right? To get them to contact you. So we don't have to put our own listing on there. We don't have to put like this killer investment deal. Just change the down payment to where it carries itself. You're still going to be at a net cash flow over 10%, right? Or better than stocks. So even have to be a 50% down payment. Just take some address, put it on the sheet, throw it on your timeline, and say, you want an inflation hedge? Who needs an inflation hedge today? That's looking at your timeline. Everybody, right? Who needs tax write-offs? Everybody. Who wants to build wealth passively? Everybody. So now we're putting something in front of them every single week. You got to be consistent with it though, right? Just pick the same day, same caption every single time. And it's going to be a different house, and that's going to draw people's attention, right? Can you guys do that? Yeah. We say it, right? 2 of you, your life will change if you do this, because you'll do it. How do we qualify? Remember that power question? Here's the power question. As quick as you can say this or get this out of your mouth after hello, whether it's a phone call or a face-to-face or a Zoom, you tell them, share with me the 10 or the properties you bought in the last 24 months. Tell me about the properties you bought in the last 24 months. If they say none, unless they're a friend or family member, I'm going to respectfully decline working with them. Because right now, to use a football metaphor, you know a kickoff return in football? They catch that ball on the 5-yard line over here, and they got to get it 95 yards down the field. That's a lot of psychological work that you have to do with a brand new investor who doesn't know what the market's offering today, doesn't know what interest rates are, hasn't even talked to a lender yet. I'm going to hold out for the 1 or 2 that can tell me, yeah, I bought this property, I bought that property, I'm trying to add to this portfolio, and here's kind of what I found. They're already on the 50-yard line. They're field goal range already, right? And if they bought it on the MLS, that's a bonus because I know I don't have to go hunting for off-market deals for them. They're realistic about prices today because you couldn't have bought something at a super significant discount on the MLS, right? So now that I know they're realistic, they like my market, I can see what their buy box is, their criteria is, because I can see what they already purchased. And now all I got to do is get them to field goal position, right? That's a short hop. And they're buying multiples, obviously. I'm holding out for that person. And I promise you, coming back to the book Essentialism, that's the resounding yes that you're looking for. You're not looking for maybes. Maybe I can get this person to the closing table or not. Unless they're a friend or relative, I'm not going to work with that person, right? I'll take a referral fee first. Because I can collect full referral fees for that type of investor faster than I could get someone like that to the closing table and make 100%. Does that make sense? Another strong way of qualifying investors, if you ever want to learn how we do this, I personally don't work with a client unless they put $5,000 up. So if you want to get in line, so I got a text message from someone who just randomly hit me up and said, hey, I just finished 2 rehabs. I'm looking for another property. I don't even know the guy's name. So he was just referred to me from somebody. And my response always is, yeah, I can help you, but our best deals go to our reservation holders. And then I stop. What do you think he says? What is that? Yeah, how do I do that? Well, if you want to put up a $5,000 completely refundable, non-committal deposit, we hold it at the title company. It gets you 24-hour first look at any opportunities we come across. Now, in my world, that could be a rental property, it could be a flip, it could be funding a personal deal of mine, right? Where I get you 8% interest plus a 15% profit kicker, right? So whether you fall in any of those buckets, if you want to get first look at the stuff that we do before we publish it, and we never have to publish because our reservation holders take everything down, right? Then you want to get your $5,000 at our title company, sign a 1-page reservation form that says, I'm not committed to selling you anything, you're not committed to buying anything, this doesn't establish agency relationship. All this says is you get first look at anything that we put out there. And you can get that money back anytime. Send an email, no penalty, they wire it right back to you, right? It just helps us separate serious investors from curious ones. Now here's where the urgency comes in. What happens if 2 of your reservation holders want the same house? You guys see what's in red right here? What does it say? Date and time of receipt. When that wire hits their $5,000 title company, I get to the minute when that wire hit and we put it on their sheet before we sign it and send it back. And now, guess who gets that property?
First served.
Yeah, it's the only fair way to do it. And when you understand and you start working with investors, here's the realization that you come to, is that you're way more valuable than the money is. You're way more valuable. There's so much money out there right now. So many investors looking for deals. And when you can speak this language, you're 1 out of 1,000. If you execute everything we talk about today and you go out there to the field and you're doing your one post every week and you're accumulating evidence that you're an investment specialist, and now you're starting to have more conversation with investors, you know what works, what doesn't work, you have a good property management partner, you have a good lender that can serve them, your value goes up exponentially for the money out there. And you're the more valuable piece. The deals that you bring to the table are more valuable. So I have no problem telling somebody, yeah, if you want first look, $5,000. I just don't play if you don't do that, right? Maybe you don't have that confidence now, but as your identity shifts because you're doing those ugly repetitions, then you start to value yourself a lot more and you don't do it. That's just like some people want to drop to a 4% listing commission. If you know your value, you don't do that and you have no problem holding at like 6 or whatever you do, right? Same thing in this world.